Hey, what's up, people? Pizowell here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the new Blue Underground Blu-ray release for 1972's Deathline, aka Raw Meat. Co-written and directed by Gary Sherman and starring Donald Pleasance and Christopher Lee. Now, this is going to be partially a review of the movie as well as a review of this Blu-ray release from the folks over at Blue Underground. And Deathline is about a young couple who find themselves embroiled in a mystery involving people who go missing in the underground London subway system. We're then introduced to an eccentric inspector played by Donald Pleasance, and we soon come to discover that what's lurking beneath the streets of London are plague-riddled cannibals, descendants from people who were working down in the tunnels back in the 19th century. The tunnels collapsed, and these people survived by eating each other, and they just kept inbreeding to create future generations of plague-ridden cannibals who occasionally come to the surface to grab people, take them down below, and eat them. And Deathline is actually based on the Sonny Bean story, a family of inbred cannibals at the turn of the century who fed on unlucky passers-by that Wes Craven based The Hills Have Eyes on. I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. And now, Deathline is a movie that I'd heard about for many, many years. I just never had the opportunity to check out. I thought it was an interesting sounding movie. On top of that, you had a cast comprised of Donald Pleasance and Christopher Lee, and the film is directed by Gary Sherman, who brought us Dead and Buried as well as Poltergeist 3. And Deathline it's not exactly what I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. I think I was expecting a combination of The Hills Have Eyes meets Chud in London. And that's really not what this movie is about. Deathline is really sort of a metaphor for the class struggle that was going on at the time in the UK. Now, of course, they throw cannibals in the mix and, little blood, little gore to make it a horror movie, but really this movie is more of a socio-political statement, I think, on Gary Sherman's part. Now, again, that's not to say that the horror elements aren't there, but again, it's not what I expected. Now, first and foremost, I liked all the characters in Deathline, particularly Donald Pleasance's character. He plays this eccentric, almost bumbling inspector. He has so many really funny lines of dialogue in the movie. Even though Christopher Lee is billed as a co-star in this movie, he's in it for all of about a minute, but it's a very memorable minute because it's shared with Donald Pleasance, and they have a very funny, very entertaining, very amusing dialogue exchange that really just sort of made the movie for me. I loved Donald Pleasance's performance in Deathline. If you're only familiar with Donald Pleasance from, of course, the Halloween series, or from the Bond movie that he was in, or Dario Argento's Phenomena, should definitely look into Deathline. I think this shows Donald Pleasance's range as an actor and his ability to play really kind of offbeat, quirky characters. Great performance from Donald Pleasance in this movie. Great performances really all around in the movie. And one thing I really appreciated about Deathline is how they humanized the cannibal in the movie. Now, there's not a whole bunch of different cannibals in this film, although the marketing for the movie would make you believe that. There's really only two cannibals in the movie, a husband and a wife. The wife is pregnant, the wife is dying, and the movie does an excellent job of humanizing the cannibal man, who's just referred to as the man in the movie. You almost feel for him because he's a descendant of these tunnel workers. The tunnel collapsed on them, and in order to survive, they had to feed off of one another, and they just survived down there, inbreeding, and, as I said, occasionally going to the surface and snatching a random person and bringing them down and eating them. But he's the last of their ilk. He is the very last. And there's some really nice sequences. Keep in mind, he has really no dialogue in the movie other than "mind the doors," which I'm sure George R.R. Martin completely plagiarized for his Game of Thrones books. Hold the door, mind the doors. It's eerily similar. But there's some great sequences involving the man down in the catacombs under the city of London, in the crypts, where you see all the other cannibals who'd lived down there, where they've been laid to rest in various stages of decomposition. And we see him laying his pregnant, dead cannibal wife to rest and mourning over her in his own way. And it really brought a humanity to this character who, in any other movie, would just be the straightforward bad guy, antagonist, cannibal, eating people, and the like. And I really appreciated that about Deathline. Now, the movie does kind of plod along here and there. The pacing could definitely have been tightened up a little bit. But aside from that, I had a really good time watching Deathline. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it was actually better than what I was expecting. The performances are good. It's a really well-made movie. The music is good. There's some actually really kind of creepy moments in the film as well. And again, taking that extra step to really humanize the villain, I really appreciated that. I thought that was a very nice touch on Gary Sherman's part. If you've not seen Deathline, aka Raw Meat, this Blu-ray from the fine folks over at Blue Underground would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. If you are a fan of Deathline, you definitely want to look into this Blu-ray release and add it to your collection. The picture quality and the sound quality are both really nice. We also get a nice collector's booklet with this release, including a write-up on the film by Michael Gingold and Christopher Gulo. It also includes lots of pictures from the film, including promotional materials and more. Very nice booklet. We also get a reversible sleeve, including the new cover art for the film, as well as the old school Raw Meat cover art for the film, which I think is really cool, by the way. And I think I may turn this around and make this my cover for the Blu-ray. And this is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. As far as extras are concerned, we have Tales from the Tube, a 19-minute interview with co-writer-director Gary Sherman and executive producers Jay Cantner and Alan Ladd Jr. Sherman discusses co-writing the script and how Jonathan Demme helped it get into the hands of Cantner and Ladd. Cantner discusses financing the film in the UK because it had become very difficult to get a film financed in the US at the time. Cantner also discusses approaching Marlon Brando to play the cannibal, but that clearly didn't work out. Sherman discusses the cameo from Christopher Lee and how Lee said he'd only do it as long as he got to work with the great Donald Pleasance. Ladd discusses some of the films he produced after Deathline, really obscure movies that nobody ever saw, like Star Wars, Young Frankenstein, and Blade Runner, among many, many others. Very nice interview, 19 minutes in length. Next up, we have From the Depths, a 13-minute interview with star David Ladd and producer Paul Maslansky. Ladd discusses how intimidating it was to work with Donald Pleasance and how skilled he was as an actor and the humor he brought to the character. They both discuss how good the script was and how it attracted actors the caliber of Pleasance and Christopher Lee. They discuss working in the underground in London and how cold it was down there. They discuss how well the movie looks despite its low budget. They also discuss how the film has been rediscovered all these years later and its cult status. Very nice interview there. Next up, we have Mind the Doors, a 16-minute interview with star Hugh Armstrong, who sadly passed away last year. Mr. Armstrong discusses how he got into acting. He discusses being cast in Deathline and working with Gary Sherman. He discusses developing the character and trying to find the innocence in the character. He discusses working with Donald Pleasance and hanging out with him behind the scenes and what a nice, charming man he was. Very nice interview there with Mr. Armstrong. We also have an audio commentary with Gary Sherman, Paul Maslansky, and assistant director Louis Moore O'Farrell. I watched about a half an hour of the movie with the commentary. Pretty entertaining commentary, pretty technical, but Gary Sherman tries to keep it relatively light. So, pretty nice commentary from those guys. We also have trailers, TV spots, radio spots, and poster and still galleries. This is a very nice Blu-ray from the fine folks over at Blue Underground. Great picture quality, great sound quality, and some really nice extras. If you've not seen Deathline, this Blu-ray would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. If you're a fan of Deathline, this Blu-ray, I do believe, is a must. I'll put a link to Blue Underground's website in the description. Go over and check them out. If you've seen Deathline, please let me know what you think of it down in the comments section below. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.